A millionaire walks through the aisles of a luxury supermarket when he's approached by a 6-year-old girl carrying 2 newborn babies in her arms. With a trembling voice, she whispers, "Mister, can you buy milk for my little brothers? I promise to pay you back when I grow up." When he asks where their mother is, her answer devastates him, forcing him to make a difficult decision. The metallic clatter of shopping carts echoed through the upscale grocery store as Robert Miller walked the aisles with impeccable posture, his Italian suit perfectly tailored and his leather shoes gleaming under the fluorescent lights. At 45, he had acquired everything money could buy, yet his expression remained cold, calculating, as if he were analyzing a financial spreadsheet even while choosing a bottle of wine. Saturday afternoon was his only moment of respite from the obsessive routine he'd maintained for decades. Even then, he couldn't completely disconnect, mentally reviewing reports, planning strategies, calculating profits. His life was a succession of numbers, targets, and achievements that never seemed enough to fill the void growing silently in his chest. In the imported wine section, Robert meticulously examined labels when a subtle movement caught his eye. A small figure approached timidly, carrying something in her arms. When he looked up, his heart literally stopped for a moment. A girl of about 6 years old walked toward him, holding 2 newborns close to her chest. Her brown hair was disheveled, her simple clothes were clean but visibly patched, and her large, dark eyes shone with a mix of determination and vulnerability that hit him like a lightning bolt. The babies cried softly, a fragile murmur that blended with the ambient noise of the store. Robert noticed that other people walked past the girl without even noticing her, absorbed in their own mundane concerns. He himself had almost done the same until she stopped directly in front of him. "Mister," she whispered with a trembling but brave voice, "can you buy formula for my baby brothers? I promise to pay you back when I grow up." The words hit Robert like a punch to the gut. He had faced multi-million-dollar negotiations without flinching. He had coldly laid off hundreds of employees with calculated indifference. He had built a business empire based on rational and ruthless decisions. But in that moment, standing before that child, carrying an impossible burden for her age, he felt completely disarmed. "Where's your mom?" he asked with a softness he hadn't used in years, lowering himself to her height. "Mom's at home, very sick and can't nurse them," she replied, adjusting the babies in her arms with a skill that revealed experience beyond her years. "She cries a lot because she doesn't have enough milk and the babies are hungry." Robert felt something stir within him, an emotion he had buried so deeply he didn't remember it existed. He looked at the babies. They were twins, probably only a few months old, and their tiny mouths moved instinctively, searching for food. "How did you get here?" he asked, realizing there was no adult accompanying the girl. "I walked," she replied with devastating simplicity. "I clean cars in the parking lot sometimes and earn some coins, but today I didn't earn enough for the special formula the babies need." The girl opened her small hand, revealing a few dirty coins and a crumpled $5 bill. It was all she had in the world, and she was willing to spend it on her brothers. Robert felt his world of certainties begin to crumble. Here was a child who showed more compassion, responsibility, and love than he had shown in decades of existence. She wasn't asking for herself, but for children even smaller than her who depended on her. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice coming out rougher than he intended. "Mia," she replied, smiling for the first time. "And will you help me?" In that moment, Robert knew his life had been divided into 2 parts. Before and after that encounter, something fundamental had changed forever. Robert slowly stood up, his legs trembling as if he had run a marathon. His business mind, always so efficient at finding practical solutions, now struggled to process the situation unfolding before him. A 6-year-old child was asking for help to feed newborns, and he, a man who controlled millions, felt completely lost. "Of course, I'll help," he finally said, his voice softer than it had sounded in years. "Let's get the formula they need." Mia smiled, but when Robert reached for the cart to grab a can of imported baby formula, she gently tugged his sleeve. "It doesn't have to be the most expensive, mister," she said with a wisdom that cut him to the core. "Mom always says the important thing is that it has vitamins for them to grow strong." Robert stopped in the middle of the aisle, watching how she knew exactly what product to look for. Mia walked to a lower shelf and pointed to a domestic brand of baby formula. "This one is good," she explained, "and it doesn't cost too much. I've seen other mums buy it for their babies." The naturalness with which she spoke about prices and basic necessities revealed a reality Robert had never considered. While he debated between $300 or $500 wines, that girl was calculating pennies to keep her brothers alive. "You know a lot about this," he commented, putting 3 cans into the cart. "I have to," Mia replied, adjusting the babies who were starting to cry louder. "When Mom got sick, I had to learn fast. Mrs. Brenda, our neighbor, taught me at first, but then she moved away." Robert realized he was being led by a child through the grocery store, but he didn't mind. She knew every aisle, knew where to find deals, and had a mental list of everything she needed. "Do you come here alone often?" he asked, still processing the reality. "Only when it's really necessary," Mia replied. "Normally I go to the local market near home, but they don't have the special baby formula there. I had to walk a long way to get here." The distance she had walked carrying 2 babies began to become clear to Robert. He looked at the little ones in her arms. They were quiet now, as if they sensed help was arriving. "Do you have other siblings?" he asked, trying to better understand the situation. "No, it's just us 3, Mia said. "Mum always says we're a small but very strong family. She used to clean houses, but after the babies were born and she got sick, I had to help more." Robert felt a pang in his chest, imagining a sick woman trying to care for 3 children alone. His own childhood had been privileged, with nannies, private schools, and all the resources money could offer. He had never considered that there were children like Mia, forced to mature before their time. "And the babies, father?" he asked carefully. Mia lowered her eyes for a moment. "He left when he found out Mom was pregnant with twins. He said it was too much responsibility." The brutal simplicity of the answer hit Robert like a slap in the face. He had abandoned relationships for far lesser reasons, always prioritizing his career and personal goals. At the checkout, when Robert pulled out his credit card, Mia held his hand. "Mister, I promise I'll pay you," she said with absolute seriousness. "When I grow up and get a real job, I'll give you all the money back." Robert looked at the girl carrying 2 babies and talking about honoring financial commitments, and realized he was learning more about character in 10 minutes than he had learned in his entire adult life. "What's your full name?" Mia asked as they left the grocery store. "Robert Miller," he replied. "Thank you, Mr. Miller," she said. "You saved my baby brothers today." But Robert knew that it was he who was being saved. Robert couldn't bring himself to leave. Even after paying for the groceries and walking Mia to the store's exit, something prevented him from simply returning to his life of luxury and routine. He watched the girl rearrange the babies in her arms, preparing for the long walk back home. "Mia," he said hesitantly, "how are you going to carry all this by yourself?" She looked at the bags with the formula and other items Robert had insisted on buying: diapers, wet wipes, a small soft blanket that had caught his eye. "I'll manage," she replied with the same determination that had impressed him from the first moment. "I always find a way." Robert realized he was facing a decision that could change everything. He could go back to his luxurious penthouse, to his expensive wines and comfortable solitude. Or he could take a step beyond what was safe and known. "Let me drive you home," he offered, surprising himself with his own words. Mia looked at him with an expression that mixed gratitude and caution. "Mum always says not to accept rides from strangers," she said. "You're right," Robert agreed, admiring her mother's wisdom even without knowing her. But can you call her and ask if it's okay? We don't have a phone, Mia said simply. Mom sold her cell phone to buy medicine. With each revelation, Robert felt his world of certainties crumble a little more. He owned 3 cell phones, one for business, one personal, and one international, and had never imagined that someone could be forced to sell the only means of communication they had. Then I'll walk with you, he decided. That way you don't have to carry everything by yourself. Mia studied him for a moment, and Robert realized she was evaluating whether she could trust him. Even though she was just a child, she had developed survival instincts he had never needed to develop. You seem like a good person, she finally said. And the babies liked you. They stopped crying when you were near. Robert looked at the twins in Mia's arms and realized she was right. They seemed calmer, their tiny fists no longer clenched with hunger and discomfort. The walk revealed a city Robert had never truly seen, despite living there for decades. Leaving the upscale neighborhood where the grocery store was located, they passed through increasingly simple streets, smaller and smaller houses, until they reached an area he hadn't even known existed. Lots of good people live here, Mia said, noticing how Robert observed everything with wide eyes. Ms. Carmen gives me bread when she has extra from her bakery. Mr. Johnson sometimes lets me help at his garage and gives me a few bucks. Everyone tries to help everyone. Robert realized he was getting to know a form of community that his privileged life had never allowed him to experience. In his world, people competed, negotiated, calculated advantages. Here, they simply helped each other. Do you have many friends at school? He asked. Mia was quiet for a moment. I'm not going to school right now, she finally said. Mom can't take me and pick me up because she's too weak. And I need to take care of the babies. But can you read and write? Robert asked, horrified at the possibility. Yes, I can, Mia said proudly. Mom taught me before she got sick, and I learn other things by reading newspapers that people throw away. I really like to read. Robert stopped walking for a moment, hit by the reality that this bright girl was being deprived of an education by circumstances completely beyond her control. We're here, Mia said, pointing to a small wooden house at the end of a dirt road. Mom must be worried. Robert looked at the simple structure, but noticed it was clean and organized. There was a small garden in front with colorful flowers, and the windows, though simple, were adorned with handmade curtains. Will your mom be angry you left alone? He asked. Mia smiled sadly. She doesn't know I left. She was asleep, and I left a note saying I'd be back soon. What Robert would discover inside that house would change his perspective on courage forever. Mia pushed the wooden door carefully, trying not to make noise. The interior of the house was small, but immaculately clean, with simple furniture that had clearly been chosen with care. Robert was surprised by the organization and coziness of the environment, which contrasted drastically with the precariousness of the structure. Mom, Mia called softly. A faint voice came from what appeared to be the house's only bedroom. Mia, honey, did you go out? I was so worried. I'm here, Mom, and I brought the formula for the babies, Mia said, quickly heading to the bedroom. Robert hesitated at the entrance, feeling like an intruder in that intimate space, but curiosity and a growing concern propelled him to follow Mia. The woman he found in bed was young, probably only in her 30s, but her pale face and tired eyes revealed the weight of a constant struggle, even sick. She tried to sit up when she saw Robert. Who is this gentleman, Mia? She asked with a voice that mixed weakness and maternal protection. Mum, this is Mr. Miller. He helped me buy the formula for the babies, Mia explained, carefully placing the twins next to her mother. The woman, whom Mia introduced as Carla, looked at Robert with an expression he couldn't fully decipher. There was gratitude, but also caution and something that seemed like shame. Thank you very much, sir, she said, trying to maintain her dignity despite the situation. Mia shouldn't have bothered anyone. I always tell her not to ask strangers for anything. I didn't ask for charity, Mom, Mia said quickly. I promised I'd pay him back when I grow up. Robert watched the interaction between mother and daughter, sensing the deep love that existed between them, but also the constant worry that dominated their lives. Carla held the babies with a delicacy that revealed her experience, but Robert noticed how her hands trembled with weakness. "Are you feeling better today?" Mia asked, touching her mother's forehead with a naturalness that showed this was a daily ritual. "A little," Carla lied, clearly trying not to worry her daughter. "Did you manage to prepare their formula this morning?" "I did, but it ran out," Mia said. "That's why I went to get more." Robert realized Mia had omitted details about her journey. She hadn't mentioned walking miles carrying 2 babies, nor using her last coins in an attempt to buy the formula. "May I ask, have you been sick for a long time?" Robert asked carefully. Carla looked at him with surprise, as if she had forgotten he was still there. "Since the babies were born, 4 months ago. The doctors said it's something in my blood, but..." She paused, looking at Mia. "It's nothing that can't be fixed." Robert caught the unspoken message. She didn't want to scare her daughter, but the situation was clearly more serious than she admitted. "Mom, can I prepare their formula?" Mia asked. "Of course, honey. You know how to do it." Robert watched Mia leave the room with one of the formula cans and took the opportunity to speak with Carla more directly. "You need medical help," he said softly. Carla's eyes welled with tears. "I know," she whispered, "but I have no way to pay. I've already sold everything I had of value. The treatment costs more than I earned in an entire year. And the children's father, he vanished when he found out they were twins," she said with bitterness. "He said one child was already too much for him." Robert felt anger growing inside him, anger at a man who had abandoned a family. Anger at a system that made a mother choose between her own life and feeding her children. "Mia shouldn't be handling all this alone," he said. "I know," Carla cried silently. "She lost her childhood caring for me and her brothers, but I have no choice. If something happens to me..." Robert realized he was witnessing a form of love he had never experienced, the love of a mother who sacrificed everything for her children, and of a daughter who took on impossible responsibilities to protect her family. When Mia returned with the prepared bottle, Robert knew he couldn't simply leave and pretend none of this was real. Robert spent the entire night thinking about the family he had met. In his penthouse apartment, surrounded by every imaginable luxury, he couldn't get the image of Mia feeding the babies with a patience and delicacy that rivaled any experienced mother out of his mind. The responsibility the child carried on her shoulders haunted him until dawn. On Sunday morning, he made a decision that went against all his self-preservation instincts. He would return to the family's house, but this time with a plan. Robert stopped by a pharmacy and bought vitamins, basic cold and fever medications, and other items he imagined might be useful. Then he went to a grocery store and filled bags with nutritious food, especially focusing on things a recovering mother and a caretaker child would need. When he arrived at the wooden house, he found Mia in the small yard, hanging cloth diapers on an improvised clothesline. She smiled when she saw him, but there was a tiredness in her eyes that wasn't there the day before. "Mr. Miller, you came back," she said, running to him. "How are the babies?" he asked, noting he couldn't hear them crying. "They're sleeping," Mia said proudly. "The formula you bought is very good. They slept all night." Robert felt an unexpected satisfaction knowing his help had provided a night's rest for that family. "And your mum?" Mia's smile wavered. "She had a fever during the night. I put cold compresses on her, like the neighbor taught me, but she's still weak." Robert felt his chest tighten. "Can I see her?" Mia hesitated. "She was a little embarrassed yesterday after you left. She said she shouldn't have let a stranger see her like that. But I brought some things that might help," Robert said, showing the bags. Mia's eyes widened, but then she shook her head. "Mom won't want to accept. She always says we don't ask anyone for favors." Robert realized he was facing an unforeseen obstacle. In his business world, problems were solved with money and resources, But here he was dealing with something far more complex. Human dignity. "Mia," he said, kneeling down to her height, "what if I told you I needed your help?" The girl looked at him confused. "What do you mean?" Robert improvised, following an instinct he didn't even know he possessed. "I'm a very lonely man. I don't have family, I don't have children. Meeting you made me realize that maybe I can learn some important things. What if, instead of me helping you, we are helping each other?" Mia processed his words with the seriousness of an adult. "You want to be our friend?" "Very much," Robert said, surprised by the sincerity of his own answer. "I'll ask Mom," Mia said, heading inside the house. Robert waited outside, listening to the muffled conversation between mother and daughter. Carla was clearly resisting, but Mia argued with an impressive eloquence for her age. Finally, Mia returned. "Mom said you can come in, but only if you promise you're not doing this out of pity." "I promise," Robert said. Inside the house, Carla was sitting in bed, visibly weaker than the day before, but trying to maintain her composure. The babies slept peacefully beside her. "Mr. Miller," she said with a weak but firm voice, "Mia told me you want to be our friend. But I need you to understand one thing. We have pride. We don't accept charity." "I understand," Robert said. "Dee, what if I told you it's not charity? What if it's a fair exchange?" Carla looked at him suspiciously. "What kind of exchange?" Robert took a deep breath, knowing that what he was about to say would change everything. "You teach me about family, about courage, about what truly matters in life, and I'll help ensure Mia can go back to school and that you have what you need to get well." The silence that followed was tense, charged with possibilities and fears. "Why would you do this for us?" Carla finally asked. Robert looked at Mia, who held his small hand in hers, and realized the answer was simpler and more complex than any deal he had ever closed. "Because you showed me I was lost, and now I want to find my way back home." Carla studied Robert's face for long moments, as if trying to decipher his true intentions. Mia remained by the bed, holding her mother's hand with one of hers and Robert's with the other, forming a human bridge between two completely different worlds. "Do you have children?" Carla finally asked. "No," Robert replied, feeling a pang of emptiness he had never admitted to himself. "I never had time for family. I always thought it was a distraction from business." "And now?" Mia asked with that childlike curiosity that cut straight to the heart of matters. Robert looked at the girl, realizing she had asked the question Carla hadn't dared to. Now I realize that perhaps I've missed the most important things in life, chasing the least important ones." One of the babies began to cry softly, and Robert watched as Mia immediately went to him, picking him up with a naturalness that moved him. She gently swayed the little one, whispering words of affection she had clearly learned by observing her mother. "Mia," Carla said softly, "take the babies to the living room to change their diapers." When they were alone, Carla looked directly into Robert's eyes. "You need to understand something about my daughter. She's already been through things no child should go through. She's seen me cry in pain, seen me faint from weakness, taken on adult responsibilities. If you're here out of guilt or some kind of personal charity project, I'd prefer you leave now." Carla's brutal frankness hit Robert like a punch. She was protecting her daughter the only way she knew how, with hard honesty. "Do I understand your concern?" he said, "and you're right to be cautious, but I can swear to you that my intention isn't to hurt you. Mia touched me in a way I didn't know was possible." "How?" Carla asked. Robert paused, searching for the right words. "I built an entire life based on control, on always having the right answers, on never depending on anyone. But your daughter showed me there's a much greater strength in vulnerability, in the courage to ask for help when you need it, in the ability to love unconditionally." Carla remained silent, evaluating his words. "She told me she promised to pay you back when she grows up," Robert continued. "That broke my heart, but it also showed me an integrity I had lost long ago. I want to learn to be half the person she already is at 6 years old." "And what exactly do you propose?" Carla asked. "One, let me help with the family's medical and basic expenses," Robert said. "In return, accept that I spend time here, that I learn from you what truly matters. Mia can teach me about courage. You can teach me about unconditional love. And perhaps I can repay you by ensuring she gets the education she deserves." "And when you get tired of playing at family?" Carla asked with a bitterness that revealed old wounds. The question hit Robert deeply. "I don't know how to convince you that this isn't a game for me. I can only say that, for the first time in years, I feel like I've found something worth more than any business deal I've ever closed." Mia returned to the living room carrying one of the babies, who was now clean and smiling. "Mom, can Mr. Miller stay for lunch? I know how to make really good pasta." Carla looked at her daughter, then at Robert, and he realized he was being tested. "Do you really cook?" she asked Mia. "Yes, I do. Miss Brenda taught me before she moved. I know how to make pasta, rice, eggs, and a few other things." The idea of a 6-year-old child cooking meals for the family made Robert's heart ache again. At his house, he had a professional chef who prepared elaborate meals he barely had time to savor. "I'd love to have lunch with you," he said. Carla nodded slowly. "All right. But I want it to be clear that this doesn't mean I accept your proposal. It just means I'm willing to get to know you better before deciding." "Fair enough," Robert agreed. "And one more thing, Mr. Miller," Carla said, her voice gaining a firmness he hadn't yet heard. "If at any point I feel your presence is harming my daughter in any way, you will have to leave and never come back." "I agree completely," Robert said. Mia clapped her hands, happy. "Then I'll start cooking. Mr. Miller, can you help me set the table?" As he followed Mia to the small kitchen, Robert realized he was about to participate in something he had never experienced. A meal made with love in a home where every gesture mattered. 3 days after lunch at Mia's house, Robert was in his office when he received a call that would change everything. It was an unknown number, and he almost didn't answer. His assistant had strict instructions about filtering calls. "Hello?" he answered distractedly, reviewing contracts. "Mr. Miller." The voice was an unknown woman's, tense and urgent. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Carmen. I own the bakery near Mia's house. She gave me your number saying you were a family friend." Robert dropped his papers immediately. "Has something happened?" "Her mother collapsed this morning and can't wake up. Mia is desperate. She doesn't know what to do. She came running here asking for help, but I can't afford a private hospital, and at the community clinic they said they have no beds." A chill ran down Robert's spine. "Where are they now?" "At their house. Mia is alone with the babies and her unconscious mother. I offered to stay with her, but she said she doesn't want to leave her mother alone for a minute." Robert was already getting up, grabbing his car keys. "They'll be there right away. Can you stay with Mia until I arrive?" "I'm already on my way," Carmen said. "Mr. Miller, the situation is very serious. That girl is trying to be strong, but she's terrified." Robert rushed through his company's corridors, ignoring greetings from employees and his assistant's attempts to remind him of important appointments. None of that mattered now. The only thing on his mind was getting to Mia and Carla. The city traffic had never seemed so slow. Robert drummed his fingers on the steering wheel, mentally calculating the nearest hospitals, the best doctors he knew, the resources he could mobilize. For the first time in his life, his wealth wasn't a symbol of status, but a tool for salvation. When he arrived at the house, he found Carmen holding the 2 babies while Mia was kneeling beside the bed, holding her mother's hand and whispering, "Mom, please wake up. The babies need you. I need you." Robert's heart broke at the sight. Mia, so strong and courageous until then, finally looked like a frightened child. Tears streamed down her face, and she trembled as she tried to wake Carla. "Mia," he said softly, touching the girl's shoulder. She turned and ran into his arms, sobbing. "Mr. Miller," She won't wake up. I tried everything I knew, but she won't wake up. Robert hugged her tightly, feeling her despair as if it were his own. It's okay, Mia. I'm here now. We'll take care of your mom. He approached Carla, checking her breathing and pulse. She was alive, but clearly in serious condition. Her skin was pale and cold, and her breathing was irregular. Carmen, can you stay with the babies? Robert asked. Of course, she said, sensing the urgency. Mia, we're taking your mom to the hospital now, Robert said, already pulling out his cell phone to call a private ambulance. But what if she dies? Mia asked, her voice broken with fear. Robert knelt in front of her, holding her face in his hands. Listen carefully, Mia. Your mum is a very strong woman, just like you, and now she has all the medical help she needs. We won't let anything happen to her. You promise? Mia asked, her large eyes fixed on his. Robert knew he shouldn't make promises he might not be able to keep. But looking at that girl, who had already lost so much, he couldn't hesitate. I promise, he said. We'll fight with all our strength. The ambulance arrived in record time, and Robert realized he was experiencing something he had never experienced before, the absolute fear of losing someone he loved. Because at some point during those few days, that family had become his family. As the ambulance sped through the streets with Carla, Mia and him inside, Robert made a decision that would change everything. No matter what it cost, no matter what resources he needed to mobilize, he would save Carla. Not out of charity, not out of guilt, but because that family had become the most important thing in his life. At the city's most exclusive private hospital, Robert discovered the real power of his influence when used with purpose. Within minutes, he had mobilized a complete medical team: cardiologist, hematologist, general practitioner and specialized nurses. Carla was admitted to the ICU, and tests began immediately. Mia didn't leave Robert's side, holding his hand tightly as she watched doctors and nurses enter and leave her mother's room. The hospital was an alien world to her. Everything was white, shiny, and full of strange sounds that scared her. Mr. Miller, she whispered. Why are there so many machines connected to Mom? Robert looked through the glass at Carla, connected to monitors that constantly beeped, and felt a tightening in his chest. They're helping her get strong while the doctors figure out how to cure her, he explained with a calmness he was far from feeling. The head physician, Dr. Williams, approached them with a serious expression. Robert felt Mia tense beside him. Mr. Miller, may I speak with you privately? The doctor asked. Everything you have to say, you can say in front of Mia, Robert said firmly. She has the right to know about her mother. Dr. Williams hesitated but agreed. Initial tests show that Miss Carla has severe anemia and extreme malnutrition. Her body is simply exhausted, but there's something more concerning. Robert felt Mia squeeze his hand tighter. We found signs of a widespread infection that wasn't treated. This, combined with the body's general weakness, has created a critical situation. She will need blood transfusions, intravenous antibiotics, and intensive care for the next few days. But will she get well? Mia asked with a voice so small, Robert felt like crying. Dr. Williams looked at the girl gently. We'll do everything we can, dear. Your mum is a fighter. We can see that from the tests. She fought this illness for a very long time. How long had she really been sick? Robert asked. Based on the symptoms and progression, I'd say at least 8 months, maybe longer. She was probably feeling weak and in pain for a long time, but she kept taking care of her family anyway. Robert closed his eyes for a moment, imagining Carla battling the illness in silence, hiding the severity from Mia so as not to scare her. Doctor, he said, I want her to have the best possible treatment. I don't care about the cost. Mr. Miller, Mia tugged his sleeve. But Mom said, we don't accept charity. Robert knelt in front of her again. Remember our agreement. You teach me about family, and I help with other things. Your mom is teaching me about courage right now, even while she's sleeping. Mia thought about it with her usual seriousness. Is it really a fair exchange? More than fair, Robert said. Your family is giving me things money can't buy. That night, Robert refused to leave the hospital. He transformed the waiting room into his temporary office, cancelling important meetings and delegating crucial decisions to his subordinates. Mia slept on the couch beside him, using his suit as a blanket. In the early hours of the morning, she woke from a nightmare, crying softly. "I dreamed Mom went away and left me alone with the babies," she whispered. Robert hugged her close. "Your mum isn't going anywhere, and even if something happened, which it won't, you would never be alone. I would be here. Forever?" Mia asked. The simple question hit Robert like a lightning bolt. For the first time, he was being asked about a commitment that went beyond contracts and profits. "Forever," he said, and realized he had never said anything with more certainty in his entire life. On the second day, Carmen appeared at the hospital bringing the babies so Mia could see them. The scene in the waiting room was touching, Mia caring for her younger siblings while Robert held one of them and tried to stop him from crying. "You've never taken care of a baby before, have you?" Mia asked, laughing for the first time in 2 days. "Is it that obvious?" Robert asked, trying to rock the baby the way he had seen Mia do. "Very," Mia said, but without malice. "But you're learning fast." In that moment, Robert realized he was living something he had always rejected. He was being part of a real family, with all the responsibilities, fears, and joys that entailed. On the third day, as the first rays of sun streamed through the ICU window, Carla opened her eyes. The first sound she heard was Mia's voice reading a children's story softly, sitting in a chair beside the bed. And then the princess realized she didn't need a castle to be happy, because she had a family who loved her. Mia read from a book Robert had bought at the hospital gift shop. "Mia!" Carla's voice came out weak, almost a whisper. Mia dropped the book and jumped up. "Mom, you're awake!" Her tears of joy immediately began to flow. Robert, who had gone to get coffee, rushed in when he heard the commotion. When he saw Carla conscious, he felt such deep relief that his legs almost gave out. "How do you feel?" Mia asked, carefully holding her mother's hand. "Tired," Carla said, her voice gradually gaining strength. "But better, much better." She looked around, realizing where she was. "Hospital, the best in the city," Robert said, approaching the bed. "You gave us quite a scare." Carla tried to sit up, but she was still weak. "How long have I been here? And the babies?" 3 days, Mia said, "and the babies are fine. Ms. Carmen is taking care of them, and Mr. Miller hired a nurse to help." Carla looked at Robert with an expression he couldn't decipher. "Mr. Miller, we need to talk." In the following hours, after the doctors completed their examinations and confirmed that Carla was out of danger, she and Robert had the most honest and difficult conversation of their lives. "I almost died," Carla said directly. "And if that had happened, Mia would have been alone with 2 babies. That thought terrifies me more than any illness." Robert nodded, understanding the gravity of what she was saying. "You saved my life," she continued. "And it wasn't just by paying for the hospital. It was by bringing hope into this house when I no longer had the strength to have hope." "Carla, let me finish," she said firmly. "Mia told me about the promise you made to her, about being here forever. I need to know if you were serious." Robert looked through the window of the room, where he could see Mia in the hospital garden, pushing the babies in strollers borrowed from nursing staff. She was singing to them, and her joy was contagious. "More serious than anything I've ever said in my life," he replied. "Why?" Carla asked. "Why would a rich and successful man like you care about a family like ours?" Robert thought about the answer for a long moment. "Because you showed me who I really am underneath everything I've built. Mia taught me about true courage. You taught me about unconditional love. And the babies, they taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply be present." Carla studied him with eyes that had seen much suffering, but also much wisdom. "And what do you want from us in return?" she asked. "A family," Robert said simply. "I want to learn to be part of something bigger than myself. I want to help Mia grow and achieve all her dreams. I want to see the babies take their first steps, say their first words. I want to be here for the good times and the difficult ones, even when it's not convenient, even when it interferes with your business." "Especially then," Robert said. "Because I've learned that nothing I've built in the last 20 years is worth a single smile from Mia." Carla closed her eyes for a moment, and Robert realized she was making a decision that would change everything for all of them. "All right," she finally said, "but we have to establish some rules. Mia needs to go back to school. I need time to recover completely, and we all need to learn how to be a family in a way that works." "I agree with everything," Robert said. "And one last thing, Mr. Miller," Carla said, her voice becoming softer. "Thank you for not giving up on us." In that moment, Robert knew he had found something he had been searching for his whole life without knowing it. A place where he truly belonged. Outside, Mia shouted with joy when she saw a bird land on the baby's stroller, and Robert realized that sound would forever be the soundtrack of happiness in his life. 2 weeks after Carla's hospital discharge, Robert was discovering that being part of a family was simultaneously the most natural and most challenging thing he had ever done. His meticulously organized life had transformed into a beautiful mess of feeding schedules, diaper changes, bedtime stories, and deep conversations with a 6-year-old girl who asked questions no executive ever had. "Mr. Miller," Mia said one Saturday morning, as he tried to figure out how to prepare baby cereal, "why did you live alone before you met us?" Robert stopped stirring the pot, realizing Mia always asked the toughest questions at the simplest moments. "Because I thought I didn't need anyone," he answered honestly. "I thought being independent was the same as being strong. And now I know that needing the right people isn't weakness. It's what makes us human." Mia nodded with her characteristic seriousness. "Mom always said we're stronger together than alone." Carla, who was in the living room nursing one of the babies, smiled as she overheard the conversation. Her recovery had been remarkable, both physically and emotionally. Having the burden of daily survival lifted from her shoulders had allowed her to rediscover the joy of being a mother, instead of just struggling to keep everyone alive. Robert had insisted on moving the family to a bigger, more comfortable house, but Carla had initially resisted. The compromise they found was a simple but decent house in the same neighborhood where they already lived, so Mia could keep her friendships and Carla her community connections. "Mia starts her new school on Monday," Carla said, joining them in the kitchen. "She's nervous." "No, I'm not," Mia protested, but her blush gave her away. Robert knelt in front of her. "It's normal to be nervous about new things. But do you know what I've learned about you?" "What?" "That you're the bravest person I know. If you can take care of babies and your mom, you can face anything at school." "What if the other kids don't like me?" "Impossible," Robert said with conviction. "You have such a big heart that everyone fits in it." The phone rang, interrupting the moment. It was Robert's assistant, reminding him of an important meeting he had completely forgotten. "And I need to go to the office for a few hours," he said, hanging up. "That's fine," Carla said. "We'll be okay." But Robert noticed something in Mia's expression, a shadow of insecurity she tried to hide. "Mia, do you want to come with me to the office?" he asked impulsively. "You can see where I work." Her eyes lit up. "Can I really?" At the office, Mia caused quite a stir. Robert's employees, accustomed to his professional coldness, were shocked to see him introducing a little girl as "my daughter Mia" and patiently explaining how each department worked. "Mr. Miller," Mia asked, looking out the panoramic window of his office, "from way up here, can you see our house?" "You can't see the house," he said, "but you can see what truly matters." "What?" "The future. And now that you're part of my life, the future looks much brighter." During the meeting, Robert discovered something surprising. Making decisions became easier when he had a family to consider. The questions he asked now were different. Will this keep me away from home for too long? Does this contribute to the kind of man I want to be for Mia? Is this aligned with the values I want to teach? Daddy Robert, Mia said when they returned home, using the title for the first time without realizing it. Robert stopped in the middle of the sidewalk, too moved to speak. That's what you called me, he said softly. Mia blushed. Sorry, it just slipped out. Don't apologize, Robert said, kneeling to her height. It was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever said to me. Can I really call you that, Daddy Robert? It would be an honor, he said, hugging her. That night, as he put Mia to bed, she asked him another one of her profound questions. Daddy Robert, do you think people can really change? Why do you ask? Because you were so different when we met you at the grocery store, and now you smile more. You play with me. You help with the babies. It's like you've turned into a completely new person. Robert thought about it. I think the right people awaken parts of us we didn't even know existed. You helped me find the Robert I always should have been. Mia smiled, satisfied with the answer. So we're a real family now? The truest there is, Robert said, kissing her forehead. As he turned off the lights, Robert realized he had found something all his money had never been able to buy, a home. 6 months after that first meeting at the grocery store, Robert thought he had faced all the challenges family life could present. He was wrong. The call he received on a Thursday afternoon in his office would change everything again. Mr. Miller, the voice was formal, official. This is Child Protective Services. We've received an anonymous report regarding the situation of the minor Mia Santos. Robert's blood ran cold. What kind of report? Allegations that a minor is living in an unregulated household with an adult who has no legal familial ties. We need to conduct an assessment visit to verify the living conditions and determine if the minor should be removed from the current environment. Robert felt the world spin. When? Tomorrow at 2 p.m. All residents of the household must be present. After hanging up, Robert remained paralyzed for several minutes. Then he rushed home, knowing he had to tell the family before they arrived, and found everyone unprepared. Carla was bathing the babies when he arrived, and Mia was at the kitchen table doing her homework. The domestic scene, so normal and cozy, contrasted brutally with the bomb he was about to drop. We need to talk, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. Carla immediately sensed something was wrong. Mia, honey, can you go play in the yard for a bit? No, Robert said. She needs to know too. He told them about the call, watching Carla's face go pale and Mia gradually understand the gravity of the situation. They can take me away, Mia asked, her voice small and scared. I won't let that happen, Robert said with a firmness he was far from feeling. Carla held his hands. Robert, you need to understand something. If they determine the situation is unregulated, there's not much we can do. You have no legal ties to us. Then we'll create one, Robert said. I'll call my lawyers right now. To do what? Robert paused, realizing he was speaking impulsively. What legal tie could he create? Adoption would take months. Marrying Carla would be for the wrong reasons. Temporary guardianship, perhaps, but even then, I don't know, he finally admitted. But there has to be something. That night, none of them slept well. Robert spent hours on the phone with lawyers, trying to find legal alternatives. Carla organized and reorganized the house, trying to ensure everything would be perfect for the visit. Mia alternated between the two, trying to help but clearly terrified. Daddy Robert, she said when he put her to bed, if they take me, will you look for me? Robert felt his heart break. Mia, look at me. No matter what happens tomorrow, no matter where you are, I will fight to bring you back. I promise. Even if it takes a long time. Even if it takes a lifetime. Mia hugged him tightly. I love you, Daddy Robert. I love you too. My daughter. The next morning, the house was immaculate. Carla had prepared coffee and homemade cookies. Robert had dressed formally, but not too much. He wanted to appear responsible without seeming intimidating. Mia wore her best dress, nervous but trying to be brave. At exactly 2 p.m., the doorbell rang. The social worker, Dr. Eleanor Thompson, was a middle-aged woman with a serious but not hostile expression. She was accompanied by a Child Protective Services caseworker and carried a clipboard with papers. "Good morning, we're here for the requested assessment." Robert greeted them with all the courtesy he could muster, but his hands trembled slightly. For 2 hours, Dr. Thompson asked detailed questions. How did the family meet? What was the nature of the relationship? How were the children's needs being met? What was the financial and emotional stability of the arrangement? Robert answered with complete honesty, knowing that any lie would be discovered and only worsen the situation. "Mr. Miller," the social worker finally said, "do you understand that this situation is highly irregular from a legal standpoint?" "I do," Robert said. "But from a human standpoint, it's the most right thing I've ever done in my life." "And you, Carla, how do you feel about this arrangement?" Carla took a deep breath. "Dr. Thompson, this man saved my life and the lives of my children. He's not a stranger who just showed up offering charity. He has become part of our family." The social worker wrote everything down, her expression remaining impenetrable. "Mia," she said, addressing the girl directly, "do you like living here?" "Very much," Mia said. "This is my family." "And what if I told you that you could go to a house with other children, where you'd have new toys and lots of activities?" Mia looked at Robert, then at Carla, then back at the social worker. "I don't want new toys," she said, with a firmness that surprised everyone. "I want my family." Dr. Thompson closed her clipboard. "I'll prepare my report and submit it to the judge. The decision will be communicated within 48 hours. After they left, the family remained in absolute silence, each lost in their own fears and hopes. Robert knew that the next 48 hours would determine whether everything they had fought for would survive or crumble forever. The longest 48 hours of Robert's life were marked by a mobilization he never would have imagined. When the news about the investigation spread through the community, something extraordinary happened. People began to show up to support the family. Carmen was the first, bringing letters written by neighbors attesting to Robert's character and Mia's visible well-being since he came into their lives. Ms. Brenda, the former neighbor who had taught Mia to care for the babies, returned specifically to give her testimony. Even parents of Mia's schoolmates appeared, talking about how the girl had become happier and more confident. "I've never seen anything like this," Robert's lawyer commented. "It's as if the entire community has risen up to defend you." On the morning of the second day, Robert received an unexpected call. It was Dr. Williams, the doctor who had cared for Carla. "Mr. Miller, I heard about the situation. I'd like to offer my medical testimony regarding the positive impact your presence has had on Carla's recovery and the children's emotional development." "You would do that?" "It would be medical negligence not to. I rarely see such a complete transformation in a family. The emotional and financial stability you provided was literally a healing factor." In the afternoon, Robert was in his office trying to concentrate on work when his assistant announced an unexpected visit. Dr. Thompson had arrived, but she wasn't alone. With her was an older woman who introduced herself as Dr. Regina Santos, a supervisor for Child Protective Services. "Mr. Miller," Dr. Santos said, "and I came personally because I rarely see a case that mobilizes so much community support. We've received over 50 letters and testimonials in favor of your family in the last 48 hours. Robert felt a cautious hope growing in his chest. "Furthermore," she continued, "our deeper investigation revealed that the anonymous report came from someone who was terminated from your company last month for misconduct. This raises questions about the motivation for the report." Robert remembered an employee who had been let go for harassment against colleagues. The possibility of revenge hadn't occurred to him. "However," Dr. Thompson said, "that doesn't change the fact that the legal situation needs to be regularized." What does that mean? Robert asked. It means we recommend that Miss Carla petition for you to become Mia's legal guardian. With full rights and responsibilities, Dr. Santos explained. This would formalize what already exists in practice. Robert felt his legs nearly give out. And you approve of this petition? More than that, Dr. Thompson said with a smile, the first Robert had seen on her face. We will expressly recommend to the judge that it be approved. We rarely see a case where the child's best interests are so clearly being served. When they arrived home with the news, they found Mia playing in the yard with the babies while Carla watched them from the porch. The domestic scene, so natural and loving, summed up everything they had fought for. We have news, Robert announced. He told them about the visit and the recommendation. Mia listened with increasing attention, and when he finished, she ran into his arms. Does this mean you'll be my real dad on paper too? If your mum agrees, Robert said, looking at Carla. Carla approached them, tears streaming down her face. Robert, are you sure? Being a legal guardian means serious, permanent responsibilities. Carla, he said, holding her hands and Mia's. There is nothing in the world I am more sure of. I want Mia to be my daughter in every possible sense. Then yes, Carla said, 1,000 times yes. 2 weeks later, at the county clerk's office, Robert signed the papers that officially made him Mia's legal guardian. She stood beside him, wearing a new blue dress and holding a special pen he had bought for her. Can I sign too now? She asked. Of course, the clerk said. You can sign here at the bottom as agreement. Mia took the pen and, with her careful child's handwriting, wrote, Mia Santos, Daddy Robert's daughter. When they left the office, Robert carried not just legal documents, but the certainty that he had found his true purpose in life. Daddy Robert, Mia said, swinging her legs from the back seat of the car, can I ask you a question? Always. Do you remember that day at the grocery store when I asked you for formula for the babies? Like it was yesterday. I knew you were a special person. How? Because you didn't look at me like I was invisible. You really saw me. Robert had to pull the car over because his tears were blurring his vision. In that moment, he understood that he hadn't saved a family had saved him. 1 year after that transformative encounter at the grocery store, Robert stood in the same wine aisle, but now accompanied by a family. Mia, now 7 years old and radiant in her school uniform, pushed a cart while the twins, who were now walking and speaking a few words, ran around her under Carla's loving gaze. Daddy Robert, can I choose the juice? Mia asked, still thrilled with the autonomy she had gained. Of course, honey. You know what Mom and the babies like best. As Mia deliberated between the options, Robert reflected on how that place had become symbolic. The grocery store where his life had changed forever now housed a special project, a section dedicated to food donations for families in need, funded by his foundation and managed by Carla. Mr. Miller, a voice called him. It was Carmen, who now worked as a coordinator for the community outreach program they had created in the neighborhood. Carmen, how are the families this week? We served 23 families, she said proudly, and we have good news. That single mum you met last month got a stable job. Robert smiled, realizing how gratifying it was to use his resources to multiply stories of hope instead of just accumulating wealth. And Auntie Carmen, Mia, ran to hug the woman who had become one of the maternal figures in her expanded life. Hi, Princess. How was school today? I got a perfect score on my math test, Mia said proudly. And the teacher said, I'm going to participate in the science fair. What project are you presenting? Carla asked, joining the group. I'm going to show how small plants can grow anywhere if they have enough love and care, Mia said. Like our family. Robert felt that familiar wave of emotion that always came when Mia made her profound observations with childlike simplicity. At the checkout, the cashier, who already knew the family, smiled when she saw them. How are the babies, Mia? Growing so much. John already knows how to say Mia. And Anna said, Mommy, yesterday, she replied, full of pride for her siblings. As they paid for the groceries, Robert observed the natural dynamic that had developed between them. Carla guided the nutritional choices, Mia helped organize and entertain the little ones, and he made sure nothing was lacking. Each had their role, but all were equally important. Daddy Robert, Mia said on the way home, can I tell you a secret? Always. Sometimes I'm scared that all this is a dream and that I'll wake up in the old shack, alone with the crying babies and Mommy sick. Robert pulled the car over again. He had developed the habit of stopping for important conversations. Mia, look at me. I'll tell you a secret too. I sometimes have that fear. Fear of waking up alone in my cold apartment without you all. Really, really. But do you know what I've learned? Fear is part of love. When we love someone very much, we're afraid of losing them. But that doesn't mean we will lose them. It means we have something precious to protect, and you'll protect our family. With my life, Robert said, just like you protected your family when you were little, and your mom protected all of you even when she was sick. That night, after putting the children to bed, Robert and Carla sat on the porch of the house, watching the stars. Do you regret anything? Carla asked. The time I lost living an empty life, Robert said. But I can't regret it completely, because if it had been different, maybe I wouldn't have found you exactly when you needed me. And when you needed us, Carla added. Yes, he agreed. When I needed you most. Mia appeared at the porch door, holding a drawing. I couldn't sleep, she said. I made this for you, Daddy Robert. The drawing showed 5 figures holding hands in front of a colorful house. Below, in her careful handwriting, she had written, My chosen family, Mia, Daddy Robert, Mommy, John, and Anna. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, Robert said, hugging her. Can I sleep out here with you tonight? Of course, Carla said. Let's get the babies too. Family night on the porch. When everyone was gathered under the stars, Robert and Carla in chairs, Mia and the twins sleeping in blankets on the ground, Robert realized he had found something no professional achievement had ever given him: complete peace. Thank you, he whispered to the universe, addressing whatever force had orchestrated that casual encounter at the grocery store. A year before, he was a rich but empty man, surrounded by possessions but isolated from love. Now, he was simply a father, a protector, a member of a family he had chosen to build based on unconditional love. Mia had fulfilled her promise to pay him back when she grew up, not with money, but with love, purpose, and the discovery that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in the courage to open our hearts to those who most need our protection. And Robert finally understood that sometimes we need to be broken to become whole, and that life's greatest treasures come wrapped in the simplest and most sincere requests from those who still believe in human kindness.